that to Nibiru, and they probably did it, good enough, hundreds of thousands, maybe a million years ago. So the planet, I think the color from it, the dull red golden color is a result of that envelope of gold shell that they've created. They've created for themselves a Dyson sphere around their planet. And I suspect that any advanced technology will ultimately do the same, simply because it makes sense. It's a practical thing.
But if they had that degree of engineering capability, why wouldn't they just live on Mars instead of hurtling through the solar system?
Well, they weren't the original occupants of Mars. Okay. They used Mars as a way station, and they've reactivated it, and I agree with Zechariah on that they've reactivated their way system, their way station there. They used to drop off on Mars on their way here. So they were never, I don't think, original inhabitants of Mars. There are a few remnants of original inhabitants on Mars. There's even some indications, which I've been looking into, and I've gotten some data, that we're playing host to a bunch of Martians here on this planet. I'm talking about the original species.
Do you know anything about the original Martian species? Or have you...
Other than the only thing, I've talked to a couple of remote viewers who've apparently been able to come face to face with them, so to speak, and they ended up looking a lot like American Indians.
Okay.
And I may have met a Martian, but I've known so many strange people in my life.
And sure, I mean, I understand this well enough to know not to laugh at a comment like that, that's for sure. So, that, believe it or not, was meant to be a minor question. I have a more major one, something that I thought you might want to talk about, or maybe I had misunderstood you a little earlier on, I think, in a conversation that Kerry had reported with you. Some serious researchers, Linda Howe, Jim Mars, quite a lot of other people, are really suspecting that there may be a hoax alien invasion as a kind of major celestial 9/11 event in our sky.
You're talking about a false flag kind of situation.
Flag, yes. And
if we were to pull that off, if any of our idiot nitwits back there think that they could pull that off, I think they'd make absolute damn fools of themselves, because I don't believe it would work. I don't think you can do that when you've got the real power out there that wouldn't allow that to happen.
Not so much an invasion, but a big display in the sky to create fear and to make people easier to control. Carol Rosin said that she had always been told by Werner von Braun many years ago.
Yeah, Werner shared that apparently before he died, that it was one of the programs that the government at the time was considering. You know, they've had these little plots they've been working on all the time. This war, that war, the stock market crash, this, that, you know, all these little magician things that while I'm showing you this hand, I'm picking your pocket with this one. They may have had that in mind at that time, but I don't think they're thinking of it seriously now, because I think that our so-called powers that be, which is a joke, are in such close relationship and collusion with the real power that it would never work, that they would never allow it. It's like they're not going to allow a thermonuclear war. Yeah. There's too much valuable real estate here. Not just this rich gold mine of human genetics. What a ripe reservoir we are of genes and, God, the whole species, plus all of the other fauna and all of the other flora. This is a valuable planet, and they love it. They own it. We've never owned it. We just live on it. They farm us, so to speak. God. Charles Fort was right, to some degree. We are property. And we're going to remain property until we reach a point where we can literally stand up and say, all right, we're going to do this now ourselves, and prove it to the universe. We're dealing with a universe filled with life, and most of it is so far beyond our own. I used an analogy one time, and I said, they look upon us like we look upon headhunters in New Guinea. Now, you've seen the films, you know, History channels and all the rest. They're naked, they're running around with these stupid things on their penises and, you know, bones through their, whatever. Pathetic, sad, primitive, savages. They're not to be feared. They're not to be abused. They're to be nurtured and cared for. Well, the difference between some of them out there and us is the difference between us and these poor guys in New Guinea and those rainforests out there. Now, I joked about that, and then I learned later that that wasn't really a very accurate comparison. I learned later that I didn't even come close to an appropriate comparison. That the real comparison between many of them out there and us is closer to how we feel about the chimpanzee. And Bill, if you allow your mind to take those trips, and I know you do, there are creatures and life forms out there that are literally godlike. A lot of the remote viewers who've encountered them, and I've seen a few of them myself, look upon them as transcendentals. They manifest as living energy life forms, forms of light. They're the same kind that appeared when Jesus was walking around. Probably the same kind of guys that showed up with poor, Joseph Smith. I didn't know the history of the Mormon faith. Poor Joe had an event one time happening in his bedroom where two brilliant, beautiful, tall, glimmering, glistening beings of pure light appeared in his bedroom. Those are transcendentals. Now, the difference between them and us is between us and the rhesus monkey. So I think I'm getting close, maybe not, but I'm thinking I'm getting close to an analogy that may be more realistic. You know, I have nothing but hope because I'm an immortal being. I'm an infinite life form. If you could see me the way I really am, Bill, it wouldn't be in this pathetic body with the...
It's only our bodies we're describing, not
Oh, that's right. You know, this is just a shell. I've had it for 79 years. I've used it badly, and I've abused it over the years, and I'm beginning to pay the lessons, or the prices for that. But if you could see me as I can see you, and we are shimmering beings of light.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Well, okay, I have a question for you because he's got a book out called End of Days.
Yes.
And in that book, he actually talks about Nibiru and the return, but he doesn't say that it's actually going to happen now.
He says he thinks it's about 2060. That was his estimate.
Okay, and so where does this information that you have and 2012, how do we put this all together? Because I'm going to say something about what you're telling us, because it's clear that you're something of an intelligence analyst yourself. You certainly have an incredible background. You can cross-correlate and so on. But you also have some insider contacts, and you also have contact with Anunnaki, as you said, all right? So where are you getting your information, and are they saying anything specific about what's happening 2012? Because I'm not so sure about Zachariah's conclusion.
That's 2060, but apparently it could be before that. The Department of Defense is quite concerned about it, that there are entire sections of the defense